welcome into another episode of the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast. It's going to be our Week 3 review, and I am joined by Cole today, and we are Smogless. It is a Smogless cast today. Clear skies ahead.
Just the Bog and the couch. Yeah, Smog on bye week, but hopefully he'll be back next week to join us.
And it'll be an exciting week next week because we're going to be getting back into the power rankings because it's week 5. Like we said, we're going to be hitting up those power rankings after 4 weeks, see how things stand. And it's been a pretty wild up and down season so far. We've got one team sitting at 3-0, a couple of us down at the bottom at 0-3. And this past week was kind of a weird one. Low scoring. And we had some pretty pedestrian scores coming out with W's. So what do you think, Cole? Do we just jump right into it? Let's get into that Week 3 review.
Yeah.
Let's get back in. And I want to talk about the first matchup here while I'm pulling it up. And the first matchup that I think we need to talk about is, let's talk about Nectar the Gods versus Kicking It with Kareem. So this was probably the biggest, I think this was the biggest blowout of the week. This was 103 to 130 Kicking It Kareem coming out with the W. What did you see in this matchup?
Well, we saw a lot of players from Nectar of the Gods, Tyler's team, just put up, the minimum 4 or 5 catches, 10, 15 rushes, get minimal gains, a very substandard week. And going forward, there wasn't even, looking at his bench, there wasn't anywhere he could get help. He still had Hopkins on suspension, Evans on suspension.
Those bad boys.
And it's a different story with Jordan's team. He's got a lot of depth on his quarterback position, as he can clearly sit Lamar Jackson and still crush his opponent. So, and anytime that Mark Andrews gets involved in that game is just there's no defense for it. I mean, you're really going to have to put up 130, 140 points to even get him close to that. So, did you see anything here that was interesting to you, Bog?
No, yeah, I agree. Better days ahead for Tyler's team, getting Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins back. Both could be top 12 receivers, when they're playing. So that's going to make a big difference. So then when you look at his lineup, if he's got Rodgers, Swift, Elliott, and then Gage, Evans, and Hopkins, that's a formidable lineup that I'm not super excited to play against. But when he's stuck right now these last couple weeks having to put in Greg Dortch and Russell Gage, who actually had decent weeks, they're just not intimidating players to me. If he can get MVS out of his starting lineup, that'll be good. But we're getting back into power rankings next week, and I think one of the biggest people that's going to be making the biggest jump, obviously, is going to be Kicking It with Kareem. I think when we were going into the season, there was a lot of question marks with this team. There was tons of upside. We just hadn't seen any of it yet, right? Sutton was what's he going to be? Kirk's on a new team. What's he going to be? Drake London's a rookie. All of these guys, it was all question marks. And currently, it seems like all of those question marks are hitting and being great players. So when that happens, you're going to shoot up the power rankings and have a great team. And Jordan might have a good season ahead of him here.
Certainly not a bad start.
Absolutely. Now, the next one I'm going to get into here, I'm talking about you here. No regrets versus the fantasy football team. And this one was a nail-biter, but you fell 116 to 122. Ben took you down, and you guys were pretty even across the positions here. Both had good games out of your quarterback, running backs, except for Darrell Henderson, I think was really what stuck the dagger in you. Darrell Henderson taking the back seat to Cam Akers. It's going to be hard to know one week or the other, right? The first 2 weeks, Darrell Henderson was clearly the lead guy. And then this past week, Cam Akers is suddenly the lead guy. Who knows what Sean McVay is going to do from one week to the other. But that was the tough part. Your receivers are good, but Brandon Cooks hurt you. I think it was just kind of a lot of – both teams had, like, good performances and bad performances. But when it's this close, a 6-point difference, it's like one or two catches away from one way or the other. So there's not much you can really walk away from this one feeling bad about, other than it's a close loss. Not really much one person could do one way or the other.
What killed me in this game was tinker time. It was 11:30 on Sunday morning, and I was sitting there looking at some rankings from Yahoo and some rankings from ESPN and NFL, and I'm like, they want me to start Henderson over Akers. I had Akers in my lineup, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll let them be smarter than me because they're supposed to be smarter than me, And clearly, if I would have just gone with my gut and not been I got to do the best lineup possible, I would have just relaxed and came out with a win. But I'm sure Ben had those sort of players too, where he could have upgraded, Madison himself. I mean, you could throw them in as a flex spot, maybe. No, DK was in there. So I don't know. Actually, Ben probably maximized his points this week. I don't know if you can check on that. I think he would probably got 95 or higher % of his available points, which I'm fairly certain will not happen again this year. But either way, it was a fun matchup. It was close the whole time.
Yeah, he was the most efficient manager. He had 94% of his maximum possible points. So you really did. One substitution there might have made the difference for you. Ben wouldn't have been. Doesn't have the same stories. So
also second highest points for third highest points for the week I got. So and you come out with a loss. What do you do?
It's tough. But let's jump into the next one here. This was another close one. Sir Davos versus Who Do You Think You Are? I Am. And another nail biter for me. I lost by less than 3 points, 92-95. Let me know what I could have done differently. How do I fix my season?
Gosh, you just got to know which players are going to have big games and which players are going to just sit out that week. I mean, like Aaron Jones last week, monster game. This week, 4.2 points. And you're never going to sit Aaron Jones, so this is just unlucky there. Matt Stafford, 10 points. If he repeats that anytime this year, I'd be surprised. That was just a terrible game for fantasy production, and even down to Gabe Davis. He just came back, but he's going to put up bigger numbers than that for the rest of the year. No question about it. You did roll into Monday night with the defense and did have a little bit of a lead for a while there, I think. But gosh darn, those Giants, they got it to a close game, and sure enough, it ended up being a nail biter right to the end, though. I mean, any turnover or a touchdown or maybe a forced fumble, and we're talking about how you squeaked out a win. So what do you want to do differently going forward? I don't think you can do much.
What I did was I got Stafford off my team. That guy has let me down too many times, and we'll talk about that later, but he had to go. And that's going to be the thing that fixes everything. He was just bad for the team. It was bad team chemistry. We got Mariota in here now, and he's going to bring us into the light. But
I believe you.
Looking at Joe's team, like, this was very even. Like, both of our teams just kind of took dookies on the bed, and his just was a little less smellier.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into this next one here. 1-1's Wildlings going against the natural-born Kylers. 1-1's Wildlings coming out with a 107-74 victory. I think the biggest factor here in this one was, the biggest factor was the natural-born Kyler's entire team just did not perform well. 74 points might be his lowest score all season long. I think he actually did literally double that last week. So
with the same lineup.
Right, exactly. So it's like, you're probably going to roll this exact same lineup out there next week, and it is just possibly going to hit different. Phil's team coming away with 107 points, that's not like a score you're afraid of. His team didn't blow you away with anything. 9 points from Eckler, 5 from Mixon, 6 out of Elijah Moore. Like, these aren't guys who are exploding and making incredible performances in this week to take you to victory. It's just one team really, really fell in comparison to the other. All right. Bring us home with this last matchup here. Rando guys out east taking on Are You Ready for Some Football? 99-96. I believe this was the narrowest victory. It was actually really close. Less than 3-point victory for Rando guy out east. Both scoring under 100 points. So like I said earlier, very low scores coming away with some W's this week.
The incredible thing about this matchup, Bog, was that Tanner came in, Rando guy out east, into Monday night, I believe down almost 40 points. Now, unless I'd mentioned these two players playing the game, nobody comes back on a 40-point night, and maybe unless they have quarterback, wide receiver, running back on one team, then maybe you can come back on a Monday night. But he had Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb going, so two players that definitely have higher ceilings than average. So it wasn't unheard of that he came back, but it's got to feel nice to come. I think he was rolling 40 or 60 points total for the week, and you're just like, oh, how am I even going to freaking put up a point tonight? And sure enough, they actually came through and helped him over the hurdle there. So on the other side of the ball, Tanner's team, or not, sorry. Tweeten's team here did not throw down some typical points from Jamar Chase, Allen Robinson, still non-existent, Justin Jefferson, just very, very pedestrian games from a lot of players. We're not going to see that every week. So I wouldn't, don't give up on yourself. Don't change that lineup. Everything's fine here. Just, roll the dice again next week, and I think you're going to be happy with your results.
And that was our Week 3 recap. Now let's jump into Boggle's biggest bungle. And the biggest bungle of the week, Cole, is me. I am your biggest bungle. I was looking at my lineup this entire week that took place, and I literally could have started someone off of my bench in every single position and had more points. Like, Amari Cooper way outscored Gabe Davis and Curtis Samuel. Dameon Pierce and Josh Jacobs outscored both of my starting running backs. Mariota outscored Matthew Stafford. David Njoku, who obviously I wasn't going to start over Kelsey, but he outscored Travis Kelsey also. Like, there were only two players in my starting lineup who weren't my defense and my kicker that were actually, like, the right start. And because of that, I am the biggest bungle of the week. And I hate it. So
I think the only thing you could have changed, like everybody in this lineup, you're not switching out. You said it perfectly. Other than maybe Curtis Samuel, you can swap him out and you could have put in Amari Cooper. That might have been a better play. I don't know what the projections for Cooper were.
Yeah, people were saying, but I am in now, and he is now in the starting lineup.
What is this? He's been putting up some big numbers this year too.
It's been great. He's been great. He was terrible week 1, and then week 2 and 3, he put up like 20 points both weeks. So
now that you start him, he's going to bungle you.
He's going to bungle me again, and I will once again be a bungle for you. But we'll see. Hopefully somebody else is the biggest bungle next week. But for now, I am the bungle of the week. But speaking of other things that happened this week, let's move on to some of the moves that our fellow league mates made that were our favorite transactions of the week that everybody did to make their team a little bit better, a little bit more competitive moving forward. What was your favorite waiver wire transaction this week?
I liked Tanner picking up Mac Hollins, wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. He had 19 targets and 35 fantasy points the last 2 weeks. You can't ask for much more than that. And you got him on a $0 bid. Yeah, he wasn't slated at the beginning of the year to be kind of part of that offense, but with Hunter Renfrow being down with a concussion, get healthy, buddy, please. Um, he's on my team, and I need him to throw up some numbers these next few weeks here so I can get back into the win column. But no, I think a steal for that $0 bid, and production, maybe not for the rest of the year, is going to be great, but for the few weeks that Hunter's out, he's definitely just as involved as Waller and Devontae Adams in that offense. How about you, Nick? What did you like from this last week for pickups?
Well, Cole, this one hurts me because you are playing against me this week, but I liked you picking up the Green Bay defense. If you look at their schedule coming up, it is very favorable. They are taking on New England this week with likely Mac Jones out. And even really if Mac Jones does play, even at full strength, I'm not afraid of Mac Jones. And him playing with a high ankle sprain is, for the sake of my Packers, I hope he does it because he's not going to be able to move and it's going to be terrible. But you look at the next 3 weeks after that, you get the Giants, the Jets, and even Washington is turnover prone and not like they've put up points, but they can make mistakes too. So you could have a 4-week start here with Green Bay, and to have that in your defense position where you're not needing to make moves, I really like it. I looked at it also, but wasn't ready to pull the trigger. But looking at it now, I maybe should have, but good on you. I really like this move.
Thank you.
And one other thing as we get into the trade corner here, we had one trade this week. We're at about one trade per week, which is okay. I'd like to get up to like 1.5. Let's start averaging like, you know. But I sent Matt Stafford to you and a fourth. Was it in 2024? No, it's next year's fourth.
It's next year's fourth round. Yep.
It's next year's fourth. So I sent Matt Stafford and my fourth round pick next year in exchange for, I believe you were holding Tanner's third round pick next year.
Correct. Yep.
Which is what I was receiving from you. So basically I trade Matt Stafford to move up around, and you have a backup quarterback now.
Just in case just in case Josh Allen goes down with something very crazy, very odd. I mean, you see the production now, and you're like, well, I'm good for the year. We've all had those years where you're not good for the year in your quarterback, and especially Josh Allen being a little bit of a running quarterback. You kind of hold your breath sometimes, and it's nice to have a little bit of a backup plan if something does happen.
Yeah, and this was like a therapy trade for me. Because Matt Stafford has just boned me so often. I can't handle it. Like, I like him as a quarterback. Seems like a good dude. You look at his numbers and he's good, but every single time I decide to start him, he just sucks. And I just had to have him off my team. I couldn't handle it anymore. So is he worth more than, like, the potential, like, 4 picks that I gained, like, position-wise here? Maybe. But, like, God, I can't. He had to go. He had to go. And now we're on to Mariota. And it's going to be great. I can't wait to start Mariota consistently. It's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited.
I think you're going to be happy with rolling Mariota for the rest of the year. I do, but we'll see. We'll
see. But you know what else we're going to see? We're going to see how you're doing with some fades and feels. Week one, your first set of predictions went really well. How did things turn out this last week?
I went 5-8 in week 3 here, which once again, it is a W because I'm picking against expert projections for all of the fantasy players for that week. So to say that somebody's going to finish at 8 and then they end up finishing at plus 25 or 30. Feels pretty good to get those bold predictions out there. I don't think it's going to happen every week, but I'm happy to gift my fantasy brilliance to the league. And I got a feeling, and that's why I'm dressed up so nice today, that soon I might be getting some phone calls from some fantasy experts asking me for advice. So
that's right, Yahoo Sports, here he comes.
But no, and if you're not familiar, the last 2 weeks I've been doing a fades and feels segment. I pick 8 players every week, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, a fade and feel. A fade is a player in the weekly top 20 fantasy projections who I think is going to perform outside the top 20 in their position. That's a fade. A feel is the opposite of that. It's a player that's outside the top 20 in projections that I pick is going to be higher than expected for that week. So should we get into this, Bog? Should we roll through these?
Let's get into it. I'm excited.
All right. And then also for that, too, I picked the running backs and the wide receivers that are inside, outside, top 20. For quarterbacks and tight ends, I only go top 10 inside and outside, as you don't need to be as deep at those positions. So for right away at quarterbacks, though, my fade for the week is Russell Wilson. Yes, Tanner, Russell Wilson. I like Russell. He's definitely got a higher level of play in him. We've seen him produce more. This early year performances have not matched up to what he is. He's got a good matchup this week, too, in Las Vegas. So that's why everyone's riding him. He's coming in at 10th for the week projected. However, he's just been terrible, like I was just saying. And I don't see all the stars aligning for him this week. Not everything gets fixed in one week just because he's run into a bad defense. But I'm fading him this week. And then for the field for the quarterback position, I have Kirk Cousins, who's coming in at quarterback 13. This is the London game this week. They play the Saints. Dalvin Cook injured his shoulder last week, and that might keep him out. So that's going to make him rely on the pass a little bit more, possibly. Kirk finished at quarterback 11 the last two seasons, so he's always got potential for the big game. And he's got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, who we know can put up some numbers. I think the Vikings put up some monster points. Skull Vikings, and I hope Kirk tosses the ball around. And then, hey guys, let's toss the ball around this week. So
let's toss the ball around a little bit.
Bog, how do you feel about those picks?
I hope you're wrong, and not because I basically play in two leagues that I care about. This one, and then one redraft league, and in that league, I just dropped Kirk Cousins for Russell Wilson. Like literally, that just happened. So. I hope you're wrong, but also you easily could be right. Like, I see a bounce-back game for Cousins. Jefferson shouldn't be bad 2 weeks in a row. So if Jefferson's going to be good, Cousins has got to be good. And, I don't know, Russ hasn't shown us anything. I'm just hoping to believe that there's still a ceiling there. And if anyone can help you figure out if you're good at throwing the ball, Las Vegas can, because they haven't looked good in the second.
Yeah,
but
they've had 2 sacks and 2 interceptions, and that's all they've had for like defensive output this year. For all 3 games, that's their line.
Right. So, man, I don't dislike the picks. I just hope you're wrong.
Thank you. And at the running back position, I'm fading Austin Eckler this week. He comes in at running back number 7. He's had a decent floor all year. His worst game, he put up 9.2 points, which is good. But what's not fun to see that is they got 32 carries for 80 total yards thus far this year. And pairing with the fact that he's only maybe getting 60% of snaps with Joshua Kelly and Sony Michel in the mix, I like the Houston defense. They've been less than excellent. We know that. But I just don't see Mr. Excellent having himself a big week with all that's going on. At the feel for the running back position, I have Ezekiel Elliott at 25. Ezekiel Elliott at 25, Bog? That's got to be wrong, right? But no, I mean, Tony Pollard has been a little bit better fantasy-wise. He has a little bit less snap percentage, but we've seen how he's a little bit more explosive and he's getting those bigger gains. But the problem is Ezekiel's getting all the red zone targets. So I think we're not seeing the balance as it normally should be and it will be probably for the remainder of the year. And also, they're playing at home. The Commanders are just bad at defense. They've been putting up giving up 27 points per week, and I think Dallas gets up early and they just lean on Zeke for some clock killing. How do you feel about that? 25. That's for a premier running back.
25 seems low. Yeah, like I get it because it's a split backfield, so you can't be like crazy high on Zeke. Like you can't be like, he's gonna hit like top 10, but like,
right?
I feel like 18.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably starting Zeke and like 25. That's like a borderline, like you should be benching him, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, he's been good when he gets the ball. And I think you're right. Like, if they can get up, you know, you're not going to be relying on Cooper Rush to keep throwing to keep you up. Like, you're going to get to the run game. So I think you're right. Like, game script-wise, like, Zeke should be a good start. And I'm afraid of Eckler. You're right. Like, he hasn't been efficient. He hasn't been getting the utilization that it looks like. And I think that 7 is still, like, built into what he did last year of people still being high on him. I think it's time to start looking at Austin Eckler a little bit different than what they did. Now, if he comes out and has a massive game this week, that kind of changes everything. But I agree with you. I'm not in on it.
Yeah, it's a tough play in any league. I mean, you're going to have to play him. It's just you're going to struggle feeling good about anything he does in that game. He's not looked like the Austin Eckler past, and yeah, it's been scary for fantasy owners. But you're getting production. I think he's at fantasy running back 6 right now on the year, so it's definitely not something you're going to worry about making a choice on. Should I bench him? Should I play him? He's in. So, at the wide receiver position this week, I'm fading Drake London, who's looked great, by the way, just terrific. His rookie season, he's gotten so far 31% target share. Holy cow! Why am I fading that? It's because M&Ms are quite appetizing, but Marcus Mariota is not, Ben. That M&M is not my favorite.
You're talking about.
I know, buddy. But he's only averaging 213 yards a game and 1 TD. And, I mean, let's hope he passes to Drake London this week, and that's all the yards he gets for Drake. So Drake can have a good week, but it's just been a tough go of it. Maybe it's been the matchups, but and I do see it getting better for Marcus, but this week it's not going to be getting better for Drake. Whatever his ceiling is at, I would bet he's going to be a little under that for sure. And then at the feel for wide receiver, I've got Adam Thielen all the way down at 43. And this kind of ties in with Kirk Cousins having a big game and starting to throw the ball around a little this week. I'm feeling the Thielen. It felt nice. Everyone sees Justin Jefferson and forgets Thielen averaged 14.6 points through his first 11 games last year. And as long as Kirk stays healthy and gets plenty of passes, I think he gets a touchdown and maybe 65 yards this week. I don't know how statistically London games work out for passing versus running or for road team. I don't think it matters whether you're home or a road team. We're technically on the road there. So what do you think the outcome of that game is going to be, Bog?
God, it's tricky. I think Minnesota should win. I haven't even looked at the line. I would assume Minnesota's favored by like 3 or 4.
It's just -3. I think Saints are a 3-point dog. Yeah.
Yeah. So I honestly would take Minnesota to cover that. I get that the Saints have a good defense, but I think Minnesota can have a very good offense. They struggled against Philly, and that hurt. And they looked like they kind of needed to like get some momentum going against Detroit. But you can tell, like, when things get going for Minnesota, they are a very good offense. And I think it's just time. Like, the thing that I think a lot of people kind of get caught up in is they saw what they did to Green Bay in week 1. They came out hot. They looked fantastic. And that can happen. But this is still a new offense that these guys are getting used to and adapting to. And that does take a little bit of time to fully get in sync and really get things going for the year. So I just think it's going to get better. And they have the weapons too. So I like it. I like Adam Thielen. And then Drake London, yeah, I get it. Like 13 does seem high, but he's been getting so much volume that, you know, he does have a relatively safe floor. So I'm with you on Thielen. I think I would still be in on London, but that's how I feel.
You're entitled to your opinion. No, and it's not a player you're going to sit with Drake London. He's been absolutely dominant. I just, maybe we're seeing the better side of him getting 31% targets. Maybe that goes down to 25, and maybe instead of him catching, getting 10 targets and 8 catches, he's back down to 7 or 5 catches, and he throws up 50 yards and just has a wide receiver 25 week. Nothing super terrible, right, but still not wide receiver 13 for the week. Now at tight end, our last position, I'm fading George Kittle. I'm picking a player that I have to start. Kittle looked below par in his first game last week. Maybe he's not 100% healthy. Maybe Jimmy G, insert jazz noise, is lacing up his shoes from last season still. Maybe I'm saying too many maybes. Either way, Kittle, the ceiling's low this week. Boy, I'm taking the fade. That's just a gut feeling, more or less, I guess. I mean, we know he's a better player than that, but at 6, it's too high for me. And then at the tight end position, I got Gerald Everett coming in at 13. His snap counts the first 3 games, 66%, 67, 75 last week. So he's already new in this offense, and he's getting his snaps, and that's good to see. He did finish tight end 8 last year also. So if Keenan Allen doesn't come back this week, if Herbert throws 40 times, I would venture to guess that Everett's going to catch 5, 6, 7 balls, maybe a touchdown, and give you that top 10 tight end performance that I think he's easily capable of this week. What are your thoughts on the tight end position? My picks here.
I like both of them. George Kittle, it's a tough matchup, and you're right. He didn't look great. He has a tendency to struggle with injuries, and he might, although he's playing, might not be 100%. And we're still waiting for Jimmy G to kind of get back into the swing of things here. So, yeah, Kittle is someone I wouldn't be super excited to start, but you obviously have to. And then Gerald Everett, I like it too. Like, he's been performing at a level that says you should be starting him over pretty much anyone that isn't one of, like, the Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts, and probably George Kittle, like TJ.
We'll drop Kittle down a tier for this week. We can throw him back up the next week.
Right, but like if it's not in that tier, like Gerald Everett's the next tier in my eyes, kind of. So I like it. Yeah, 13, too low.
Yep. Thank you. And that's it for the fades and feels. We're at, in the first 2 weeks, I've gone 11 in 16. So here's to riding another good week of picks. And hopefully you take my advice, because it's been great.
Hey, one more week out of you, or you get a W, and I'm building some DraftKings lineups off these fades and feels.
No, I have a couple times, and most of the time it pays off pretty good. So,
yeah. All right, so let's jump into our Week 4 preview, and let's dig in and see what we think is going to happen the rest of the week. We're recording Friday morning, so we got a little bit of a preview of what transpired last night in our Thursday night matchup, and kind of where people are sitting after Week 1 or after the first game of the weekend. But let's jump right into it. Cole, you and I, we're facing each other here. Let's both chat about this one a little bit.
All right.
I got a 9-point lead because of Mr. Evan McPherson kicking a couple field goals, getting 3 extra points there. I'm happy about that, but that is all that we have out of this matchup so far, and it is projected to be pretty even. How are you feeling?
I want to look at every matchup just down the board real quick, and I think you're gonna find the winner in that. Josh Allen versus Mariota. I will take the nod there. Thank you. Derrick Henry, Kamara. That's a toss-up. One of those players is going to come out ahead, but it's pretty even there. Cam Akers versus Aaron Jones. Let's not talk about it. That's a W for you there. And then we got Brandon Cooks, Devontae Adams. It says it's supposed to be kind of close, but I wouldn't venture that's going to be the case. You get the nod there again. St. Brown is a little banged up this week. I know it says he's going to put up more points than Samuel. I just don't believe that. Maybe it's close. We'll call that a wash, if you'd like. Romeo Dobbs, Amari Cooper. We saw Dobbs get involved last week. He might have another great game. We've got some injuries on the wide receiver position for Green Bay, so there's probably a little bit more upside than that there, but I think Amari Cooper's a easy win against this matchup. Kittle and Kelsey, normally a good favor matchup where, it's maybe a little bit, closer, but this week I agree this week is a Kelsey destruction from the tight end position as usual. And then Gabe Davis versus Tony Pollard. This is maybe a little closer, but we know how many points Baltimore gives up. We know Josh Allen's going to toss the ball around, and if he throws to Gabe Davis, I'm going to lose every time he throws to Gabe Davis. So, and then
that defense. On that one.
It's perfect. And then we can skip the kicker position because that's always a toss-up. And then the defense, it's also pretty much toss-up this week. Washington's been just bad, so I would say Green Bay in that matchup's pretty even again too. But if you paid attention there, I think I gave you maybe 2 or 3 more nods than myself, which in my mind makes it a 130 to 110, maybe 100 performance by me. So you crushed me this week. Good job. What do you think? What do you think the outcome's? What do you think the outcome's going to be here?
I feel like I should get a W here, but I felt that every week. Like I felt pretty good, and we'll see what happens. I'm terrified of starting Mariota, but I also feel better. Like I feel like Mariota's not going to score me less than 15 points.
He's got a good. He's got a great floor
for me.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for out of him. The one player I am super. This would be my bold move. Is I'm halfway tempted to bench Davante Adams because Denver has been absolutely shutting down top wide receivers. Davante Adams hasn't looked incredible with Vegas, but I'm not going to. I'm going to play him. But, if Davante Adams comes out and has, a 7-point game, I will not be surprised at all. So that's the only one I'll call out where, I don't feel so good about it.
You're pre-calling your bungle for the week, huh?
It's a pre-bungle call. But speaking of bungles, last week's bungle was Ben, but he is not bungling this week. He's out to a 41 to 15 lead over Phil. What are you seeing so far in this matchup?
We saw it in last night's game. Joe Burrow put up a very good game, not a top 5 performance, but definitely a top 10 quarterback performance. Higgins above average, but he's going to have those big games like he did, 124 yards, 1 touchdown, and on the other side of the ball, Mixon had a very nice baseline of 15 points. So nobody's really underperforming here going into the weekend. The matchup is extremely even again. If I were to make a pick right now, I would venture to say that Ben comes out with a win here. I'm not picking against you, Smog. It's just a lot of these players have a very, very good upside. And Juju Smith-Schuster, we've seen a hit or miss. Kyle Pitts has been hit or miss. Last week was a hit. Way to go. James Robinson has been doing well. So maybe it's going to be closer than I think. But I'll give Ben the nod here. What do you think? What do you think about some of these performances from last night? I mean,
yeah. Joe Burrow starting to look good again. That's 2 weeks in a row, putting up at least 20 points. That's great. T. Higgins looked super involved and was looking great. I have to lean towards Ben also, and more so than if we were talking last night, that might have been different. But I will take the 41 points in hand out of 2 players hitting their points compared to just one underperformer slightly against projections for Joe Mixon for Phil. So I will take the points in hand and the preview of Ben having a pretty solid week to give him the nod. Moving on, let's look at Nectar of the Gods. There's Who Do You Think You Are? I Am. 0-3 Nectar of the Gods taking on Tyler, taking on 2-1 Joe. This one, he does get some reinforcements for Tyler, gets Mike Evans back, which is a good boost. And this one not projected to be super lopsided, 109 to 120 in favor of Joe. The thing that still jumps out to me that is difficult is having to start Greg Dortch. But, he picked him up and he did well last week. And I don't see why Greg Dortch shouldn't be involved this week. So, only projecting 8.8 points, I think he gets over that, and that'll tighten up this lineup. And really, I think the big difference here is Dalvin Cook and Zay Jones in the flex position. I think that's pretty lopsided, but Zay Jones has had a very safe floor and been solid, and if he scores a touchdown like that, just raises it quite a bit. So I lean Joe, but honestly, as the season goes on, Tyler's team is starting to look better and better to me.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a decent game from Mike Evans this week. Playing Kansas City, that's going to be just an absolute point scoring who can ring it up faster. The things that scare me on his team right now, I guess, is, I don't know, the health of Swift. I think he did maybe participate in practice, but that's a little frustrating. I don't know, Lazard's health, too, is still a question issue. But Dortch, like you said, Dortch has been good. Without Rondell Moore, without Hopkins, he's been producing. He's probably, I haven't even looked, maybe wide receiver 20, and he is. He's wide receiver 21 on the year. So you can't really complain about that start at all. And Zay Jones is starting to look good. Last week he had 19 points. He's had 8, 9 targets average per game. So he's getting his share too. And yeah, throughout the year I agree with you, Bog. I think the arrow is still pointing up for Spear, but if you look at the matchup, it's not a good week for him. I'll give the nod to Joe, and best of luck going forward, though, Tyler. I think I do like a lot of your players here.
All right, let's hammer out these last two. We got a 10-point lead for Are You Ready for Some Football going up against Kicking It with Kareem. And a little bit of an underperformance. Jamar Chase not living up to what he can. It really hasn't pretty much all season over on Michael's team. What do you like for each team in this matchup?
Well, what's funny about him underproducing for the year is he's still getting, on average, 10 targets a week. So, yeah. It's a fluke. He's gonna grow on you. He's gonna get some points next week and this week, hopefully. So, or he already didn't get his points this week because they played. But he got 10. I mean, that's not the worst thing for a starting wide receiver on your team. A very even matchup, though. Honestly, as long as Hurts or Lamar Jackson doesn't throw up a big 40 game, I see it being close. I do like the running backs for Tweeten's team. I think Hall's going to keep getting more involved and better every week. McCaffrey, as long as he stays healthy, is still going to have that great baseline of 10 to 15 points, even though we're used to seeing that 20 points a game potential. And then on the other side of the ball, Jordan, I love Christian Kirk so far this year. Drake London has been good, even though I'm picking him as a fade. And Sanders has been also good, as long as they keep him involved as much as they have been, maybe a little bit more, hopefully. I'll give him the nod, obviously, because he's got a little bit of a boost here. But what are you thinking the outcome of this game is going to be?
Yeah, I lean towards Jordan this week. I think he walks away with another W, gets to 4-0. And I think for me, the big reason is I am so out on Allen Robinson. I've been out, I had him last year in a league, and he was absolutely terrible. I just don't see him getting better. I'm just out. And I get having to have him in your starting lineup, but, man, I would be trying to move that guy, trying to start anyone. I just can't stand the dude.
We're hoping he's
I have a visceral anger against Allen Robinson.
He was so bad last year, and the year before is where he put up some just monster numbers. And everybody's not forgetting about 2020, but they probably should from what we've seen so far. It's not even that he's not on the field. He's just not getting those catches. He's not getting the targets. We know Cooper Kupp's a big catch suck for everyone else on the team. It's like, oh,
Dude.
well, if he's on the field, he's getting. If I don't even know what the target share is, I don't want to know. It's too disgusting to talk about.
It is. So yeah, I lean Jordan on that one. And our last matchup of the week, we got 2-1 rando guy out east, Tanner, taking on the 1-2 natural born Kylers. Ethan is out to a decent start here, getting 20 points out of Tyreek Hill, but only 4 points out of Jalen Waddle. So that kind of washes out between the two of them. But where do you look at this matchup? Where are the differences that you see?
So we both break it down position by position on this one. I think Russell versus Kyler, you're going to give the nod, obviously, like the projections say, to Kyler a little bit, but it's a wash in my opinion there.
Running backs are a slam dunk Tanner's way in my eyes. I mean, Taylor and Saquon.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's
every time I look at
to just like have those there.
Every time I look at Tanner's team, I go, oh. You start off with those running backs, you're in for a good year, and then he follows it up. He's got CeeDee Lamb, not that Cooper Kupp I'm ignoring. He's got CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown. I think we're going to see Hollywood Brown put up numbers similar to last week more often than we've seen so far. So hopefully that stays the same. But yeah, it's going to be tough to ever beat Ethan's wide receivers in this league right now. Kupp, Hill, Waddle, and everyone. I shouldn't say everyone. I know Smog has expressed his opinion that you can't start two wide receivers in the same offense. But if they're Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you can. Last night might not have been an average performance for them. It might have been a little below average, but I don't think you're walking away with less than 25 points most weeks. And if you start either of those, and that's a great floor to have. And even we've seen in weeks the ceiling can go up to 75, 80 points. So I don't think that's going to happen, but it's nice to know that was a one-time thing, at least for somebody. So, and then we got at the flex position here, we got Montgomery going against Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, hopefully healthy, hopefully coming back, hopefully getting back involved. And the same goes for Montgomery. A little banged up this week. Hopefully he comes out and plays. If not, maybe start looking at some other options. That's why you have him in your flex spot, just in case something goes crazy. You can quick plug somebody in, and as they have more practices this week, what are you thinking? Let's look at their bench here for a minute and see what they could actually plug in.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I think I am still leaning Tanner on this one, and that is just because both of these guys have guys who are questionable in their flex who we're not sure if they're going to play. And if a substitution has to be made, I really am not a huge fan of really anyone, on Ethan's team. I mean, you'd probably go Rashad Penny against Detroit. That could work out pretty well and could totally be fine. But, Tanner can throw in Cordero Patterson, who's been great. He can put in Brandon Ayuk. He can put in Chris Olave. All these guys, I like all of them. So I just feel a little safer on Tanner's side. And I think he's got some upside on his team. I hope Russ has a good week this week and could blow up. So I'm going to give it to Tanner. Where are you going?
I think it's going to be a huge points production again from both these teams, which we've seen so far they can do this year. Tanner's best week, I think, was week 1 with the running backs going off. It slowed down a little bit, but we can see it again. I'm going to go Ethan on that one, I think. It's just like you said, getting that 25-point bump, and even though it's still probably below the projections those two players had for the week, getting that 25-point bump's always going to feel nicer because you can just have any of your players get banged up in quarter 1 and your week can almost be done in that situation.
Yeah, it's nice to have production off of Thursday night for sure. But that is our week 4 preview, and that is the wrap of our show, Cole. We made it through. Clear skies, no smog around. And I'm looking forward to this week. I feel like I'm going to come out with my first W. I'm going to take you down, and we'll talk about it next week.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough going. I'm looking forward to recording next week's video and talking about all the highlights of your players. But either way, it's going to be fun to watch. So
I agree. And next week, stay tuned. We're going to be getting back into some power rankings. We'll rearrange the show so we can fit those power rankings in and kind of keep things tight. But it's been good talking to you, man. And let's have another great week of fantasy football. This is signing off from the Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast.